Good evening and welcome to the Greater Rutland County Supervisory Union meeting on Wednesday, August 25th. If you would all please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. The first order of business is the approval of the agenda. Are there any additions, deletions, or changes to the agenda? Hearing none, a motion would be in order.
I'll make the motion.
Motion.
We had the personnel that was sent out.
Oh, the leave? Oh, I'm sorry. There is an addition of, under personnel, a request for leave.
I make a motion with the adjustment.
All right, Mike makes the motion. Second?
Second.
Second by Eric. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. General public comment. Is there anyone online or calling in that would like to make a comment during the public session? All right, we don't have any public with us here at the office, so moving on. Minutes of July 28th. A motion would be on order to approve the minutes of July 28th.
So moved.
Motion by Eric, second.
I'll second that.
Second by Tina. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Approval of warrants. Warrants are sent to you via your GRCSU email. Questions should be directed to Lewis with any concerns or clarifications. A motion would be in order for approval of the warrants.
So moved.
Motion by Lynette, second.
I had a question actually
Sure.
about it.
Okay, go ahead.
On the expenditure report on page 1 of 2, the professional services, I was wondering why it was over budget, and as well as the ERA expense. It's probably a simple answer, I just don't know it.
So which one are you on?
That's what I'm looking for.
Okay.
Is the expenditure report. I don't know, I don't see it here.
No, it was 3,200.
Do you know which warrant that was on?
Well, it says expenditure report on it, but I don't know if it was printed out. It was,
Revenue report?
well, it said expenditure report.
Do you know what the,
I'll look it up.
So Tina, it's in the back of the packet, the expenditure
Oh,
report.
it's in the back of the packet.
So, you want to take a look at mine?
oh, so that's for Lewis under,
Is that later on?
Right.
Yeah.
Not the warrants.
Never mind.
Yeah.
yeah, these are the current warrants that we're approving.
I didn't see him. When do we talk about that?
Under finance, where he
Oh,
has year-end report,
Okay.
so you have that. Okay. So Lynette's made a motion, second.
Second.
Second by Eric. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Superintendent's report. Chris?
Thanks, Lisa. So I know I've spoken at our local meetings, and I know that Lisa was at the Corey Valley Board meeting. I think the big discussion is just in terms of the recommendation for fall opening. So I have recommended to the SU board and the local boards that we continue, as we've done for the past 17 months, to follow the AOE and Department of Health's recommendations, and that's based around masking. And I kind of laid it out in this packet about what this looks like. But our expectation is that all students and staff will, regardless of vaccination status, for the first 10 days will wear masks. And then at that time, we'll then assess, the 80% of the eligible students to see where we're at, and then obviously make some adjustments. I know that the 80% will impact the 7 through 12 schools more than our K through 6 and our K through 8 building. It is unique with the K through 8 in terms of how we'd handle that, but we're waiting for further guidance from the states on what that would look like. And I know the 80% will be done in-house. It will not be done externally in terms of making that determination. I do expect some further guidance from Secretary French this Thursday in terms of what those steps might be, not just for RSU, but for other districts in the area and the state who are also following this Department of Health guidance. We also just want to iterate that we are 5 days in person, and that we do not have a remote plan or remote option. I know last year we had the hybrid option, but this year we are fully in person. We do have, for medical reasons, for behavioral, there's a mask exemption form that families can fill out. And, as we fill those out, we look at, on a case-by-case basis, we do have a flexible pathway option for individuals, but we do not have a whole-scale remote option or a virtual academy as last year. And a lot of that is just because with the lifting of the state emergency, we don't have the statutory authority to do that anymore. So, but like I said, we're back to 5 days in person, and we're well aware of the sentiment on both sides of the masking, that it is a very polarizing debate, not just in our schools or communities, not just in Vermont, but across the United States. But I think at the end of it, as I spoke with Lisa, the admin, our school nurses, regional superintendents, we really felt that, out of that duty of care, we had to continue to provide, put our students and our staff members in the best possible position to receive an education and educate in a health and a safe manner. And like I said, that we fall back on the AOA Department of Health guidance. We have not deviated from that since the start of this pandemic. So, any questions?
Any questions? Okay. I think this would be, before we get to Lisa, the appropriate time then to discuss or make a motion about masking. So a motion would be consistent with the actions taken by the GRCSU board during the 2021 school year. The GRCSU board would like to reaffirm that they are delegating all COVID-19 related matters to the superintendent for the 2022 school year.
I'll move that.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
You're opposed, Mike? So motion passes by majority.
Meredith raised her hand.
I'm sorry, yes, Meredith?
Yeah, it's not going to change the outcome of what you just voted on, but I was wondering if this is where, or is this part of the opening plan, we would discuss mandatory vaccination for staff?
So Meredith, we're waiting on a further clarification from the AOE on this. We will have some conversation on Thursday about that, but I know that last week that Secretary French had kind of said just to hold put right now, that we'll have more information on that, okay?
Okay, because the VSB just before our meeting sent out an update to
Yes.
all the members.
That's
Okay.
correct. So I do anticipate having some more information after Thursday with what those next steps, what that might look like, and I will share that with the boards.
Great, thanks.
Thanks.
All right, any other questions? All right, we'll move on to Lisa.
Good evening, everyone. You have my written report highlighting kind of recent activities. The only thing beyond that I'd love to highlight tonight is today was the start of our new teacher orientation. Our instructional coaches are running that. This is the second year in a row that they have taken that over as a way to welcome new teachers into the district and ensure that they have support and guidance right from the beginning. I wasn't able to attend today, but I got great reports from the coaches at the end of the day today, and lots of comments about
the energy and how excited they are about welcoming the new staff and working with them, and what they're bringing to our supervisory union in terms of passion and enthusiasm and commitment for the work ahead of us. So just a really exciting day in our supervisory union, and always a great reminder of how very lucky we are to work with the great professionals that we get to collaborate with on a daily basis. So just wanted to share that, and then if anyone has any questions, I'm happy to answer those.
Great, and then in September, I think we spoke about this in July, you'll come with the number of mentors that we have, and then what that job description, expectation of mentors are. I know there were a few board members that had asked about what that looks like.
Yep.
That would be great. Thank you. All right, moving on to personnel. We have resignations of Andrew Blakely, John Ward, and Sue Ellen Thornton. The last one has withdrawn has rescinded their resignation. So a motion would be in order to accept the 3 resignations.
I'll make the motion.
Motion by Mike, second.
I'll second it.
Second by Tina. All those in favor?
Can I ask a question?
Oh, yeah.
Discussion.
Yeah.
Quick question. None of these 3, or because we had discussed, I think, at Rutland Town meeting, none of these are have signed contracts here or going somewhere else?
They had.
Yes, so I do believe some of these, I cannot specifically say how many of them, but I do believe, yes, some of our paras, one of the problems we've had in the past couple weeks is the fact that paras are a shortage, that other districts are, offering positions to them, and then so I know that there is for the VS, for the Vermont Superintendent Association, there is a code of ethics, and the ethics does state a contracted teacher position. So once a teacher is under contract, that technically you're supposed to reach out to one another and basically say, like, hey, if say, no, I'm sorry, we want that teacher, but with paras, that is not the same. And I was a little before coming, I was a little upset about that, because I feel at this stage of the game, it's just, I think the same courtesy should be extended for all the staff, because I think our paras, our support staff are just as important to the operations of our schools as anyone else. And I think it was unsettling. We hate losing individuals at this time, particularly in hard to staff positions, but it is something which we did discuss in our regional superintendents group about moving forward, maybe doing a better job of just communicating and let us know as to what's going on. But it is disheartening, because I just look at it in terms of when I sign a contract, I intend to fulfill the spirit of that contract, as opposed to not just sign it and just seeing what else is out there. When I asked my wife to marry her, I didn't look around and then find somebody else to marry. It's like I made a commitment to my wife to marry her, and
She may have looked around, but...
She may have, yes. Well, the
I always
reason,
feel on my left.
and like I said, I know there's no bite behind it. It's unethical. It's just, I don't know if there's much we can do about it, unless it's one particular superintendent that just doesn't have the ethics to do this. And I'm not bringing up any names by any means, but I think they should look and see if the shoe was on the other foot. It just puts us under, especially when you're looking at, you've got less than 2 weeks before we go back to school. So I just don't know if the superintendents have any way of bumping up that, so that there is some sort of consequence attached to it.
Yeah, I have talked with Jeff Francis. I'll be continuing to speak with Jeff Francis about this, about whether or not we can include all staff in that code of ethics. 'Cause like I said, it's just, you look at, from a custodial to a support staff, to a teacher, to a special educator, they're all integral to the operation of school. And when you lose one, it really impacts, not just, staffing, but it impacts student learning.
Exactly, and the students are the ones I'm concerned about.
Right, so, and I think it's something which we will be discussing. Unfortunately, we've seen the news, paras, special educators. There are a lot of very difficult to staff positions right now. I know that we had a few individuals, Christine Cam, a couple of principals went to a job fair yesterday, looking for, support staff, and it's just not out there. And I think, things might change a little bit later on this fall when, some sort of, unemployment shifts a little bit, so that we may have some people who are looking for gainful employment. But I do think it's something which we've talked about at, the admin level, at the board level, about also but what we can do to continue to attract high-quality individuals in our schools.
Thank you, Chris. Sorry, Lisa, now you can vote.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. So the next sheet is for contract recommendations. So for professional staff, we have Amanda Stockwell, Polteny Elementary special educator, Wade Davis, Proctor Elementary interventionist. Support staff, Morgan Washburn, Jessica Vincent, Alexa Ritchie, Serena Plank, and Desiree Stone.
I'll make a motion to approve the recommendations.
Motion by Lynette, second. Seconded by Tina. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. We have a leave request from Rebecca Brinker Guerrero, and her request is actually through, she's requesting through April. However, because of the way the contract reads, the request would have to go to June 30. She is a IA at Polteny or Proctor? Because it says PES. Polteny? Okay. So she's currently, the letter just came through. You should have gotten it in your email.
It says executive session on the top of the letter.
Yeah, but it's not executive.
It doesn't have to be.
No.
Okay.
We shifted because,
Yeah.
had a conversation with our lawyer,
Yeah.
who explained that this, we can discuss as an outlook session.
Yeah, so she's currently, she's requesting extended leave through April 2022, but granting her leave, the motion would need to be to June 30th, 2022. And it's unpaid leave. So what is the pleasure of the board?
I'll make a motion to approve.
All right, motion by Lynette, second. Second by Seth. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. You have in your packet, just for information, open positions throughout the GRCSU, and I'll now toss it to Louis for finance.
Good evening, everyone. So I had a report in the package, it was labeled year-end. So I'm just going to go over the general fund for the SU as well as the special ed fund. So we ended the year in our general fund with a surplus of $85,932. The two main reasons for that is that our revenue was up by $51,000 due to increase in federal grants. So whenever we get a federal grant, we're allowed to put an indirect cost into that grant. And for like the ESSER grant and CRF grants, it was 10%. So we're able to claim a portion of those grants to cover administrative costs at the SU, such as bookkeeping, management of the grant. So due to those grants, we've brought in more revenue at the SU in the general fund. The other reason is that we had $57,000 in savings in technology, and that was due to an on-filled, it was a position that the board decided not to fill. Some of the other variances that we had, Medicaid funds was overspent, and that's due to the last 2 years we've earned less in revenue. And that's because a large part of that because of COVID, and so we were out of school from March through June last year, And when we weren't in school, there were students that weren't receiving services, which is how that Medicaid revenue was generated. And then again, this year, there was, we were in only 4 days a week, and there were some students who decided not to be in school because of the risk. And so less services would result in less revenue. So when we look at, for next year and budgeting, my recommendation would be to pull some of the expense out of Medicaid, to be cautious and put it into the local fund, because we are seeing a trend of earning less revenue in that fund. The other two variances that I listed is just 21,000 savings in travel lines due to less travel by all administrators, because a lot of work was done remotely. And then we overspent workman's comp by 12,000, and that's just due to a decrease in rates as well as an increase in rates as well as an increase in the amount of payroll that we're paying out with all of the grant-funded positions. Below that on that page is how that surplus would be divvied up by district, and those assessment percentages are based on how the assessments were charged for FY21. This money has not been refunded yet. Typically with the general fund, we leave it to the board to decide how we want to refund that. But we can refund, we have three options. We can either leave it in the general fund and let it roll forward. We could refund that to the districts in the current year, which would be FY22, or we could budget for it in FY23 and refund it to the districts in FY23. FY21 is closed, so we can no longer refund it in FY21. So we don't have to decide that tonight. We can discuss that again during budget season. If the board wants to make a decision tonight, we can do that as well. Below that, I also listed some of the other fund balances in the SU. We have food services, a fund balance of $55,000. The MAC grant, $91,000. We have $500 in the wellness fund and approximately $500 in the miscellaneous grant. For special ed, we ended the year with a surplus of $443,000. And I did list the reasons for that. A large part of that is the disallowed. So for every dollar that's disallowed, that would result in savings in the special ed fund. The offset to that would be the disallowed billbacks that the districts get hit with. In addition to the disallowed amount, we had $84,000 in savings in AAA. We had special ed tuition excess cost was under budget by $192,000. Salary and benefits, this is the big decrease, that was under by $591,000, and that's due to a number of reasons. Due to unfilled positions, due to we weren't able to find. There was some staff members that we couldn't find for the full year. There was also some unpaid leaves, and then the overage and disallowed would have decreased the special ed salary and benefits. Special ed transportation was also under by $95,000. And special ed revenue, the offset to all the expense savings, the special ed revenue was down by $484,000. And that's because the special ed is a direct reimbursement. So every dollar we spend in expense, we get approximately 56% back in reimbursement. So if our expense is down, then our revenue is also going to be down. In the end, the net savings is usually about 44%. So that's the piece that we're not getting reimbursed for. So the special ed savings of the $443,000 has already been refunded. That was refunded in FY21 to each of the districts. You can find the amount for your district in the chart below. And those amounts were discussed in each of your local boards. Any question about year-end finances?
Yes. The special ed, it says that the refund has already taken place. Is this something that's done every year automatically? Why is this automatically refunded, but the assessment isn't?
This is how we have done it since we've merged. We have refunded the special ed and have that account in at zero, just because it's a lot larger than the general fund, and the swing could be a lot larger.
Okay.
Lisa, did you want to discuss or get a consensus?
I think it would be good to discuss it this evening about the refund.
Right.
What people are thinking, if if you want to refund it in FY '22, or if we're thinking out, you want to refund it for FY '23.
Yeah, I'll speak for Rutland Town only, of course, but 23,500 approximately would be handy, seeing how we've already gone into, looks like we're going to have to make a big purchase for our solar. It would just help offset some possible deficit. I'm not sure. I have not met with Lewis until tomorrow night about this. But, so so that's personal. I mean, normally I wouldn't care.
Right.
It's nice to get that bump at the end of the year.
Sure.
But I know we're looking at some stuff.
Right. So what are your thoughts, Eric or Meredith?
Well, I would actually make a motion to refund the assessment surplus to local districts.
Okay. So that would be your discussion, the motion.
I'll second it.
So Eric makes a motion to refund in FY '22 the surplus to local districts, seconded by Lynette. Any discussion? Any questions from anyone?
Is that both of the assessment refunds or just the second one?
So the first one, special ed's already been refunded,
Okay,
and you
sorry, I
see
missed
that in the paperwork that Lewis provided. And then it would be this, so to Rutland Town, it would be the 23,000.
23.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. Did you have anything else, Lewis?
Nothing under this topic.
Okay, I think, did you have a question, Tina?
I just had a question on page 1 of 2 of the expenditure report in there. Why was the professional services so much over budget? You probably told me
The
before.
professional services, what category? Was it on the curriculum?
Yes.
That is the Medicaid piece. So we
that's
were
related?
overspent, and in my year-end report, I also commented on that. So Medicaid was overspent by $32,000. So we had $32,000 in assessments that we put to Medicaid. Those are assessments that the buildings do for their students, like maps and stuff like that. So we moved that from Medicaid to the local fund so that the Medicaid fund could end at 0.
Thank you.
All right, any other questions for Lewis? All right, moving on to old business, the recovery plan. Is anything new we're discussing, or?
I can just speak to that very
Sure.
briefly. We don't have a formal report this month, but our new recovery team staff members, being our district data manager, literacy coordinator, and SEL coach, are off and running. They have just kind of hit the ground, getting a lay of the land, getting planning underway. The literacy coordinator has been working on meetings with all the principals and the beginnings of kind of an inventory of current practices in the district, and making sure that we understand in more depth exactly what is happening in each school, along with their needs, so that we can use that information to customize training, professional development, and resource support in that area. The district data manager made sure that all of the administrators got their SBAC data, which is currently embargoed from the public, but available to administrators and individuals on a school basis early in the summer, and has supported them in analyzing and looking at that data upon request to make sure that they really understand where student performance was and have a chance to make some plans underway about that before the school year gets off and running. And our SEL coach has been engaged in a lot of different activities, but one that I'm most excited about, really coordinating with a Project Aware team that is working with 3 of our schools, Middletown, Wells, and Poultney Elementary. They have some great pieces that they've been working on through that pilot program, and so our SEL coach is making sure that their efforts and our efforts are coordinated lockstep moving forward, and will really result in more consistency and resources across the supervisory union by leveraging those pieces. We also have a universal screener coming in social emotional learning, and will give us, for the first time, any real quantitative data that we can look at in that domain for student need and student strength. So we're really excited to be able to bring that piece forward this year as well. So lots of, just a couple weeks in really, and lots of great exciting things happening with those three folks. The team itself has been working on trying to kind of operationalize our recovery plan, so taking the narrative that we submitted to the state and now actually turning it into an action plan with some deliverables and timelines. And it's still very rough and working, but we've already been able to start moving on some of the pieces that have quick turnarounds, quick wins we call them, and things that we can move on and get done now to start some of that work. So yeah, that's all for this month.
Sounds good. Questions?
How does the strategic plan or Battelle for Kids tie into that?
Well, really, the way I think about it, and Chris, you may think about it differently, but the way I think about it is I think that our recovery plan is actually doing a lot of the homework that we're going to need to do for our strategic plan. And that, when you start the strategic planning process, you try to look at where are you and gather the data that you need to make those decisions. And we've already started that process of, where are we, what's the data, where do we have good data, where do we not have good data, we need to get good data, what can we learn from that right now, and what are the initial things that we can see as areas of need. So I think that they're going to fit together very well, and that the recovery plan work, I think, is going to actually help to speed up or expedite the strategic plan piece, and or help us make more informed, better informed decisions because we have more robust information going into the conversation. So that's kind of how I look at it.
Yeah, I would say I'd agree with that. Both will benefit from one another. I think the strategic plan will benefit from the work that the recovery plan committee has done, and then I think the recovery plan committee will benefit from the work that's being done through strategic planning. I know that as we've tried to gain a wide audience, it's been very difficult with strategic planning, or with recovery plan. I think strategic planning will allow us to cast a wider net, get a little more data, a little more feedback, and so as we move through the strategic plan process, we can better inform our recovery plan and make changes. And I think, at the end, like I said, our students will benefit from both. So, but it's worked out nicely. So,
yeah, it's awesome. Kind of connected. I wanted to ask Christine Cam, are we going to be okay this year? I know those students have suffered for a couple years or a year and a half.
In what way do you mean on that?
I know some of them, some due to their own fault, some ours. I'm not sure we delivered the services that some of our students needed. We were unable for whatever reason. So some of them have slipped backwards, and now we're running into this staffing problem. I'm just wondering, are you going to be okay this year?
We're working on it, and we're really trying to work towards using more professional staff to work with our students and support our students in really working. I met as well with the literacy coach to talk about, reading intervention, supporting staff with helping that, to bring that up for our students, and having good strategies, research-based programs to really support students. So, yeah, we're still daily. I am interviewing, working on recruiting, hiring. That has gone on all summer and right through till we get everything we need. We'll continue, but yeah.
Thank you.
and I think, Lynette, what you alluded to earlier really hits us harder in the area around special education and para support. That's big, so they're in demand, and people will use a variety of methods to coerce employees from one district to another. And I think that Christine and Kim have worked very hard over the summer to try to find staff, and it's difficult. Now that the AOE has kind of loosened some restrictions and opened things up a little bit, and we're trying to be as creative as possible to staff, because that is our goal, that all our students receive high quality education and the services that they need to be successful.
Sure, I mean, it's just a perfect storm that we're just caught in right now, especially in the special ed category, but it's just sad.
Yep.
Any other old business to come before the board? New business, we have in your packet the Kelly Services rate. And who wants to speak to that? Louis?
This is Louis.
Yes, I can speak to this. So I met with Kelly Services last week just to line things up for the new school year. And one of the things we talked about was ramping up recruiting for Kelly subs for all of our buildings. There was a significant decrease in the amount of staff that we have in each of the pools per building. When COVID hit last, there was very few in each pool. They're aware of that. They're working on it. We have put signs in each of our buildings. We have lawn signs that are going up. We're doing our best to get people recruited so that we have more people to pull from to fill absences. I mean, they're having the same issue that we're having with our paraeducators and staff. It's just the unemployment issue is just very difficult. During the conversation, we talked about our rates and being more competitive to be able to attract people. So I have attached a copy of a draft contract which increases the rate for the teacher by $1 an hour, a teacher sub by $1 an hour to $105 a day, which is it's $14 an hour. The total cost for us is $150 a day. As part of the contract negotiations, if we raise our rates, they could lower the markup. So the column that says markup $1.43, that's the amount that we're paying for every dollar that the employee gets paid. So the .43, that's going to cover taxes, benefits, training, unemployment, workers' comp, all of those costs that they're covering, as well as their profit. That was at $1.44, 1.445, and they lowered it to $1.43, so a decrease of about 1%. For the paraprofessional, the recommendation is to go from $11.75 to $12.50 an hour, which our cost would be $17.88 per hour. The total cost would be an increase of $6.75 per day, based on a 700-hour day. And then no change to the administrative assistant. The other piece that we got them to take out of the contract was there was language in here that if we hired one of the Kelly subs, that we have to pay a fee, and that fee ranged anywhere between $500 to $2,000 based on how long that person was a Kelly sub. And they were willing to take that language out if we raised our rates.
So number 2 is being removed from the contract.
Well, number 2, the one that's there remains. There was a third piece with that additional fee. Number 2 is the number 2 that's in there is if we ask Kelly Services to find a candidate for us, then we pay that direct placement 15% fee.
Okay.
But that would be different than if we have a candidate that's working in our building and we decide that they're great and they would be a teacher or a great teacher or a great para and we decide to hire them. That was a third bullet that was on the old contracts for that.
Okay, that's great. Any questions for Louis?
I have a question. You said it was a 7.5-hour day, and that it would be $14. So that's for a licensed teacher? That's what we're going to pay that licensed teacher as a substitute?
So the teacher sub is based on a 7.5-hour day. They are not licensed teachers. These are just subs.
Okay.
So their qualifications could vary. They could just have a high school diploma, or they could have a college degree. But they are typically not licensed teachers, although they could be, but they're not typically.
If they were a licensed teacher, would there be a different rate for them?
Not if they're going through Kelly subs.
Okay.
So the rate remains the same, no matter what their qualifications or education or experiences.
They could hire me, they'd be sorry. Well, my concern is that $14 an hour is what Wendy's is getting right now for a hamburger slinger.
That's a whole big other issue, Mike.
Should we talk about it or not? I mean,
No, well, unfortunately, our hands are somewhat tied with union contract. So we...
Are we tied
it
to that
is-
somehow?
Yeah, we
Okay.
are, it is on the horizon.
All right.
We're working on
Okay.
it.
Just, it would seem that we should be doing better for children than what Wendy's does. Now, I understand the taxpayer pays for that. There's no doubt about that.
Right.
But I think it also is a matter of who we attract. Now, obviously, sometimes sometimes we need a body in there to watch those kids for a day.
Right.
But if we expect them to be able to pick up a lesson plan and try to fulfill that, I think we should expect to reward them better than Wendy's.
I also feel like there's no differentiation between someone that just started subbing and someone that's been subbing for 4 or 5 years and does have that knowledge. There's no reward for that. They get paid the same. I mean, this might be an increase from what they've had, but there's no differentiation.
True. I think the reward can be that as building-based administrators can give preference to Kelly about subs that they prefer,
Right.
which it allows subs to, be in one building and can allow them sometimes to work every day in that building. So I know that doesn't take the sting, I guess, of the dollar amount, but at the same time, these are people that are signing up for temporary jobs that are willing to get the call at 6:20 in the morning to work that day. So if you have worked in a building administrator is impressed with your ability to do so, I think the reward is that that building principal then says to Kelly, we think Mike is pretty amazing, we want him at the top of the list, and, you know, there's a good chance that they will book you out for, you know, much more in advance, so.
There's not a guarantee of that, right?
Well, I know that building administrators do that when they, because they, yes.
I see
Yeah.
the list, and I would prefer number 1.
Yes.
If they get to do
And
that.
maybe we don't want number 4
Yeah,
ever
Yeah,
again.
I understand.
Yeah.
A lot of times, it's not even the building administrator, so the sub is building relationships with the teachers.
Sure.
And then when the teachers know that they're going to be out, they contact those subs directly and say, will you sub for me during this period of time? And they get signed up directly, and that's based on reputation and how well they do it in the buildings. And like I said, that doesn't help with the rate side, and I think, I don't disagree with you that the rates are low, and we can work on increasing them. The only thing about, I would caution with increasing them too fast is that we have not budgeted for that increase, and so we just need to make sure that whatever increase we do, that we're not breaking the budget. And when looking at FY23 budget, we can definitely consider any other increases that the board would like to discuss and make sure that we accommodate those in the budgets and then look to raise those for next year.
So what would be the difference if an administrator had an individual that they liked versus going through Kelly? Is it the workman's comp and all that stuff that Kelly takes care of? Is that why we do that versus if an administrator says, you know, I'd rather have this person and I'm willing to pay for this person a little bit more than what Kelly's rewarding them? Can we do that or no? As a substitute?
So typically, we don't hire substitutes that we're paying directly. The one exception has been with COVID, we've used grant funds. Because Kelly has not had a pool to pull from, we have done our best to try to hire some what we call local subs that are working directly in buildings to be floaters, to be able to cover those unanticipated absences each day. And this has really been the exception because we're paying Kelly to do this for us. But because of the number of absences that we've seen last year, we felt like because of the emergency situation that we were in, we needed to have these extra people in buildings to cover these emergency absences. So we're actually, last year through federal funds, we paid $13 an hour for subs. We're lower that because the emergency is not as dire this coming year. We have lowered that back down to 12, so that we were, for one, not paying more than Kelly Services was paying, but also because we were paying, our sub rate was less than that 13, so we wanted to make sure that they were all lined up. So typically, buildings would not have the option to hire people as subs. However, so the difference between being a Kelly sub and working in our building as a para is the person has the flexibility to choose when they work. So if they felt like working on a Tuesday, they can just sign up, go on Kelly Services website and find a vacancy and work. If they didn't feel like working, they can just either make other plans, stay in bed, whatever they felt like doing. Whereas our para positions are full-time, they have to show up and work every day. So that's the real benefit to a Kelly sub.
And so we discussed, I'm sure Lynette recalls, some time ago about when we had some issues, I'll say displeasure with Kelly and the quality of their subs. We had discussed creating our own sub pool, which would require us hiring a coordinator, that would require all of the additional, payment and all that, which is, adding additional to the business department. And we looked at rough numbers, and it just didn't seem like it made sense to add that additional full-time coordinator for that, when Kelly's really kind of doing all the kind of grunt work for you. And I think with Lewis, he had some, good conversations with Kelly, and it did, COVID has played into that, but at the time, it seemed like they, I'm going to say cleaned up their act. It seemed like they had a better quality of individuals coming forward now. Now, I don't know currently, and last year, it was, it was kind of an exception to the rule, so we'll see what it looks like, but...
Yeah, our unfilled rates were getting pretty good prior to COVID. Last year they were a disaster. There's no sugarcoating it. And I really don't know what this year is going to look like. But hopefully we can work towards getting it back to where it was pre-COVID over the course of this year.
So it's us that sets the rate, and then Kelly decides what their markup's going to be, basically, correct? They don't set the rate for the sub. We decide what we're going to pay the sub, and then they determine what they need as a markup, which becomes the final number.
Right.
Correct.
Correct. We decide what we're going to pay them, which is what we have proposed here. The markup is stable based on whatever we negotiate with them. So this is the price that they had given me, which was a decrease of 1% over what was in the prior contract.
Well, and taking out number 3, I think is
Huge.
huge. So if there is someone that we have in a building that we like, that we have the ability of hiring them without paying essentially a finder's fee, yeah. So that's a big piece too that I think you negotiated out for us, Lewis.
Thank you, Lewis.
Doesn't 2 say that, though?
Well, 2 is if we ask them. So
If a customer hires a candidate referred by Kelly, so Kelly referred them to us to sub, and then we like them, and we hire them.
If Kelly almost acts like a headhunter for us, that's really what it's.
So it's only of a headhunter, it's not if we have a sub and we ask them.
Right.
I'll tell you something later.
I'm just trying to,
Yeah.
it sounds
So
so
if we have,
similar.
like, say, we're looking for a special educator, we ask Kelly's to help us in the search for a special educator, and they find one, and we end up hiring them, then that's when number 2 would apply.
Thank you for clarifying.
all right, so Lewis, you're looking for us to make a motion to accept the changes?
Yes.
So is there any more discussion on this proposed contract Exhibit A from Kelly? Is there a motion to be made to accept? Motion by Seth,
I'll second it.
seconded by Lynette. Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Any other new business to come before the board? All right, the next meeting is September 2nd, and it will be held the same here at the GRCSU meeting room, or the option to be online,
22nd or 2nd?
22nd. And we have no need for executive session this evening, so a motion would be in order.
We do have an executive session
Oh,
for contract.
we don't have anything here.
Yeah, Louis, what? All right, so we'll go into executive session, you can explain this, because we weren't given anything for
There's
this.
no material for it.
Okay, okay.
So for contracts, you said?
Yep.
So a motion to go into executive session then at 6:53 for contracts would be in order.
So moved.
Motion by Lynette, second.
Oh, second.
Second by Mike. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, motion passes. And I'm guessing it's just the board and you, Louis, along with the superintendent and assistant superintendent?
Yes.
All right.